What are outdoor shoes? I've forgotten.
I think that's the perfect place to start. It's 4020 not live for Monday the 18th. Is it a Monday? The 18th of May, 2020. We're still shut inside, although not as much as we were, apparently, judging by the people going out and about when they shouldn't be. Phil Kaplan is here, editor of 4020 magazine. The new one is out now. We both got it.
Corporate image.
Yeah, someone said the end of my column was great, and I had to check it was what I'd written, and it wasn't, so I can't take credit for that. Also here is another columnist in 4020 magazine, Danika Priim. How are you, Danika?
I'm not too bad. I'm not too bad at all. You guys keeping well?
Yeah, as much as we can do. As you say, what are jeans? What are they?
I went into school and I put them on the other day, and I've never been so uncomfortable in my life.
I don't know what I'm going to do after all this is finished. I hope that the government decide we can just wear, tracky bottoms for work and stuff.
And we're going to have to, because I put weight on so nothing fits.
And also here, joining us for the first time, because this program's all about diversity. Last time we had someone from Lancashire on, and now we've got two women on the show. So I think that's ticked as many boxes as we can. It's St Helens and England halfback Faye Gaskin. Faye, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm not coping well in lockdown. I'm not very good at being told what to do. So, but yeah, I can't fit in any clothes either. I've actually got my comfy Saint shorts on, but a nice top. I thought I'd go with.
Well, I think no one can see the bottom down, so it's all right.
Don't do a Chris Kamara. That's what we tell all the guests.
We'll try not to.
So you're not finding this fun then, Faye, at all? The fact that we're all stuck inside and with nothing much to do.
No, I miss my day job more than anything. I miss going to work and seeing my students. Training, I'm loving it because I'm literally training as a full-time athlete at the minute. I just train pretty much most of the day and alongside working, but I do miss my job. I didn't think I'd ever say that, but I do.
Are you the same, Danika? Well, I guess you're still working, aren't you? So.
Yeah, I've got contact with the kids. We've got phone calls home. We've got, and visits and stuff. And, it's just it's just trying to figure out what's the next, really, because it's going to be like this for the foreseeable. We're talking about going back to school and, there's so much and ahhing about it that as a school and as a trust, they've been amazing. And we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. People are complaining about kids going back to school, but they seem to forget that there are children in schools still. So we'll just have to, it's nice, but I do want to be back full time. I'm not one for sitting at home at a computer.
Or walking a dog.
Oh, do you know what? I've picked up so many dogs. It's brilliant. I'm going to start a new career in dog walking. Yeah, Cooper, we've got 3 school dogs. So I've been doing various rounds with them. Which is keeping me sane. I love it. I need to get a dog, I think.
There you go.
Which would be nice.
No one knows what's going to happen in the future. Obviously, rugby is probably the least important thing going on in the world right now. But any ideas when we'll all be back playing at the moment?
I think there's 2 issues. One is clearly the NRL starts in 10 days. And whilst we might have safety reservations about players, at least we'll have something to watch that's live and meaningful. Can't see the men's game here restarting before July at the very earliest because there's issues outside of safety. There's also economic issues. When do they actually want to restart to fulfil television obligations, but also not to lose their furlough payments? I think the bigger issue is the women's game. It's hardly been touched on while we've all been absent without leave. And actually, in some respects, it's the easiest thing to restart and would gain the highest profile because in terms of crowds that go, it would be relatively easy to regulate. In terms of interest it could generate outside of the usual rugby league sporting audience, I think that there's something there. With the greatest respect to the 2 fantastic players on the screen, they don't get paid. They should do, but they don't. So again, there's no great economical implication with restarting. I think there's a case for saying the women's game should come back first. Yeah,
it's a tough one, isn't it? I think that we've built up such a profile now that I think for us, we're used to like 3-4 years ago, we were playing with 20-30 people in the crowd, so it's something of nothing for us. But also now, I think we have got used to having those crowds as well, and having the little bit of coverage, either social media coverage or television coverage. So I think we would all agree, and I'm sure Faye would agree with me, we just want to play. We just want to get on the pitch, and we're all training pretty hard out of it. And what's the point in training if you're not going to have an end goal for it? Like, pre-season's the worst season for anybody. Nobody likes it.
I just think with us being women and working full time, and the minute the majority of us go back to work, it's probably higher risk in spreading, obviously, the COVID. We've got, I think it's 4 nurses on our team, and then myself, Rudge, there's a few teachers and a few working in supermarkets. And I think at the moment it's obviously health over playing, but in minimising the risk, we probably wouldn't be able to do it because of our jobs. We're going into school with students on the 1st of June and with the girls being nurses. But yeah, like Danika said, I don't think my hamstring's ready to play, but I'm ready to play. So it is hard just training and not knowing when. But I guess it's the same for the men. They also don't know anything.
We're stuck in this awful limbo, aren't we? No one knows what's going to happen. No one knows any idea of when we'll be back playing. And we want to be as safe as possible when we are. And I guess from a playing perspective, we look at the German football was back this weekend. They're not allowed to celebrate together, not allowed to shake hands or whatever. They're still tackling each other. You're obviously in a much more physical environment. How do you see that actually working, being able to play a sport in this coronavirus world?
It's a player. I think it's a player specific thing. It's a personal thing. For me, I'm in schools. I'm around different people, socially distancing. As much as I hate that phrase now, as much as we can and as much as what we can. But it's physically impossible in a career that in a profession that Faye and I have. However, when it comes to the rugby field, it's about what precautions are they going to take to ensure that both teams are fit and healthy and well. Is it a temperature thing? Is it a testing thing? And then we've got this 2-week kind of isolation period where you could be carrying it. I don't think it's worthy of, as much as I would play tomorrow if they said play. Like, for me personally, I'm just desperate to get back to normality. But the grand scheme, like Faye says, one, you've got a risk of losing players who are putting their job before the game, which is what we have to do 9 times out of 10 anyway, but this is more specific. And then what happens if I am carrying it, I tackle Faye, as grim as it sounds, things are tracked past, and the sweat and trying to keep a gum shield in while shouting is near impossible without spraying people. So, it's about the greater good of other people around you as well, which is harder.
If you couldn't play for this entire 2021 season, 2020, how would that affect you as athletes?
I think Faye, you're more of an athlete than I am now.
I think with me being injured this year in a selfish way, it's probably not affected me too much because I knew I would have missed quite a lot of the season with rehab. In terms of rehab, it's been horrendous. Like, speaking to a physio on the phone is nowhere near as good as seeing a physio. Like, I was a bit worried when I started running. Would I do something where it make it worse? How would I know without a specialist support? But I guess in the long scheme of things, it will impact athletes quite a lot, especially leading up to the England girls who have been doing quite a lot this year and then leading into the World Cup next year. It is quite a lot of time, but it's not just like England aren't playing. Obviously, Australia, the women haven't played. New Zealand, their president has been quite phenomenal, really, with her COVID battle, but they've also not been playing sport. So it's not just like it's us who's not playing. It's hit the whole of the world, really. But in terms of being an athlete and training and living for the game, yeah, I think a lot of people have struggled. A few of the Saints girls haven't got weights at home and they haven't got the equipment because the gyms are shut. So I think in terms of that, it will impact quite a lot, but we're hoping when it gets restarted, obviously players are fit and ready to go. And I think that's the main thing. You don't want to be told next week it's restarting and you've got no pre-season, because injuries just happen then, don't they?
I think the danger was as well that we were talking about expanding Super League, which was the right thing to do where the game was at. But now, the same as the men are looking at, how on earth do you come up with a fixture format? Because you couldn't possibly even countenance midweek matches. What's integrity in the remainder of 2020 for the Women's Rugby League?
I think, things aside, I think for the development of the game and the development of the players we've got, ironically, this is the first year that England have actually put on regular training sessions. Faye and I went to the World Cup in 2017. I think after the final squad had been announced, I think we had 3 sessions together, maybe. If that, maybe 2 sessions, I think it was, Faye, was it? Something ridiculous. Whereas now the England performance squad, they're meeting every other week now, and it's great. But in terms of just getting back playing, I think just game time is what's needed. So, put aside any trophies, any shields, if we have to hold it for another year, we have to hold it for another year, we'll look after it. But it's not about that. I think it's literally just about game time and development now. And, we've had girls that are going for massive 10K runs now that would never have run 10K in their life, before this. They're going to be not only lighter, but they're going to be fitter. So is that going to have implications on the position they play? Are they going to play the same way? They're going to be as powerful, as strong. There's so many variables that it's not just about the game and about the medical side of things. It's literally about how people have transformed. There's a few people that might have not done as much and then therefore be bigger and slower and not as effective. We just need to get playing and see where everyone's at and just get some game time, get a few hits. There's nothing better than game fitness. And I think just see out 2020 as a friendly season as such. If we do have time, we get back with a 10 to 14 week kind of plan, then maybe we could have a league leaders or something like that. But I think really we just need to just play and see where girls are at and help the EPS squad develop up for 2021.
I'm going to throw in Phil's favourite idea for everything, which is with a number of players who have got important, proper jobs in the real world, as opposed to like me and Phil, who may not want to risk the health of not themselves, but people who they work with and people who they come into contact with. Let's have nines and sevens. Let's not have a concern about having full 13-a-side teams out there. Let's have a series of sevens events on. I'm just throwing out ideas.
I'm out. See ya. I retire. I'm not playing sevens or nines.
I thought you were talking about you when you mentioned people doing 10Ks.
Yeah. I've walked about 60K last week, so walked and ran it in various training sessions. I'm doing all right. Not a runner.
Scrum half.
Yeah. No. I think you're right in the format of stuff, but that's not for the forwards. That's Faye's game, that is.
I think when we went to the nines, it was enjoyable, and I know obviously the priority for England at the minute will be the World Cup squad. And I spoke to Deck, who's our head coach, the other week, and I said the priority is them really, and them being ready for 2021. So if that means they go and play Lancashire, Yorkshire a few times if the season doesn't start, well, why can't we go and play nines? Or why can't, I don't know, Leeds, Cass, Saints, Warrington, Wigan set up a nines, and for those players who aren't in that squad, because obviously the priority, I understand, is the 2021 World Cup. But for example, if I'm not playing and just playing club level, that's fine. But what's put out for those who are just playing club level? Or are we just sort of like put to a side and forgotten until February next year? Because I think that's when you start losing girls to rugby union, maybe trying a bit of CrossFit, I don't know, enjoying the running further and going finding a small little running club. So I think although the priority is the World Cup and the England girls being 100% ready for it, also you've got to look at those girls who aren't selected in that, and there's quite a lot. There's 40 in the EPU at the minute. Well, I'm sure there's probably 100 who aren't. So what's for them?
You mentioned a really important point there as well about participation. That one of the things you're both involved in your day job, but concerned about in terms of the rugby, is getting more women and girls involved in the sport. Is there a worry, do you think, that because of this breakdown of social interaction, that we'll struggle to get women and girls back interested in rugby league? I think there's an issue as well for young boys as well. It's not representative of just women. I think that anybody who's involved in a junior rugby league club has got real concerns about how many kids will come back when they're allowed to reopen. Is there anything we should be doing while we can't be playing to engage women and girls other than going on TikTok?
I don't have
TikTok is brilliant.
TikTok. I'm just putting that there. I don't use it. I'm obviously a dinosaur when it comes to social media and technology, so I don't use that. But in terms of getting people involved, I've done a little bit. One of my friends coaches at Crossfields under sevens, and he asked would I do a message for his team. He had a few Super League males but no females, and I set them some little challenges. So each week I'll ring him and leave a video, and the team send the challenges to me, and a girl won last time and I give her some England kits. So I think it's about social media is a massive platform, and if you can get people more involved. I know with my college, our girls rugby team, we send stuff out with them to get them involved, and our students, we send them fitness sessions. So in terms of the platform, it is hard because we're not playing at the minute, and normally there's a lot of advertisement around the women's game, and I've not seen much of that since we've been in this lockdown as such. Social media's gone quiet for the women at the minute, and it is hard. You very rarely see anything, and I just think we had such a high platform and so much building around us, and at the minute it's gone really stale.
That's the sad thing, isn't it? We had such momentum that I think, you know, we're in a society now where people are indoors all the time, or they're limited to where they're going. So therefore, you know, kids are back on the PlayStations, the computers, whatever it is. And Faye's completely right. You know, before this, we were, you know, you'd go on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and there'd always be something flashing up, either an interview or highlights. And yeah, more recently, like the Challenge Cup final was on Saturday night, but I didn't even know about that until the day of it or whatever. So it's kind of that fine line between how do you keep the momentum and who's in charge of keeping the momentum going. Because I think for a sport, generally rugby league will struggle, but for the women's game, we're really going to struggle on this, you know, 201,000 by 2021, unless something miraculous happens in the end of this year. We're going to be so far off that target because, you know, the girls, as Faye and I both know, teaching them, that adolescent period where you can either capture them and get them really engaged and involved, or you lose them to other things, and, you know, and they choose not to take up sport. So it's quite scary and a bit sad, really, because, you know, Tom Prindle at the RFL has worked relentlessly for the last 3 years to get us where we are, and it would have been such a huge season, and I really think we would have exceeded that 21,000 by, you know, 2021. But who knows? It's a bit sad, really.
Because I'm perceptive, I've only just noticed over your shoulder, Danika, your medal from the Challenge Cup final. Oh, there's the grand final there as well. As much as obviously
I think Faye's up there. Faye's up there in my England picture.
As much as you enjoyed beating Castleford last year in those finals, I think that the best games we saw last year were between yourselves and St Helens, and unfortunately for Faye, her side came out on the wrong side last year. You know, because I said when you were on the show a couple of ago, I tipped Saints to win everything, which of course now is, you know, pretty much null and void. So wrong once again. But you must have been looking to resume that rivalry again this year. And Faye, from your perspective, getting one over on Leeds.
Yeah, I think the first cup I was on holiday, wasn't I? My best friend got married, so I couldn't say no. She asked me to be a bridesmaid, and then it fell on the was it Challenge Cup that was?
It was a semi-final. Yeah, it was a semi-final.
Yeah. So we looked at different flights to swap it. Like Mike Rush from Saints had looked, Deck had looked, and there just was no other flights to get on to get to my best friend's wedding. So I sat around the pool watching it, and I can see what I was doing now, and I just looked at my best friend, and she was like, "I'm so sorry." I was like, "I will never forgive you for this." And she we didn't speak for the rest of the day. Then I was like, and her husband to be was like, "Oh, Faye, I really thought you would win," and I was like, "I don't want to speak about it." So I'd fell out with him for the day after that. But fair play to Leeds, he didn't give up to last minute, and then obviously the grand we beat you then, didn't we, at Headingley? That's a pretty amazing stadium, and because the work was getting done then, so it was pretty phenomenal that we got to play there. Really, I do always like playing at Headingley. It's a stadium I've always enjoyed. And then we played back at Saints, and weren't it for round
final? It was a playoff,
yeah, not good. I don't know what happened in our second half, but we were complacent, and I guess Leeds come out fighting for it, and fair play to him, and went on to win. And it's always one thing, I think, if we get beat by someone, you always want them to go and win, then you want to be beaten by the best, I guess. If you get beaten, I think fair play there. I thought Cass it was quite a close game to start with, because obviously we were watching because we were flying to Australia the next day. But again, Leeds just grind out. They just do the easy stuff right, I guess, and other teams don't do that.
Yeah, I remember that the Challenge Cup semi-final, and hearing that you weren't playing. I remember going around I remember saying to Lois, I was like, Faye's not playing, that's it, we're in, we've got a good chance. Because I think, like, I started my rugby career and Faye was my captain, England student. So Faye and I go back quite far, but I reckon if you'd have been playing that would have been a completely different game in terms of, I think you go under the radar a little bit in terms of game management. Your kicking game, your vision is just second to none. I think, when we talk about the best halves in the league, I think you're by far the best half in the league, closely followed by Courtney. But yeah, that definitely would have made a big difference had you been there. So thanks for your best friend for having a wedding.
I'm never booking a holiday ever again, ever. Why season? Never.
Vision on the way.
I was just saying, in terms of the World Cup, because you obviously that's got to now be the main item agenda on the horizon. And you mentioned as well that they're not playing anywhere else in the world at the moment. Disappointing that the NRL that only had 4 teams have decided at the moment that women's game isn't a priority, and they're down to 2. I think that's disrespectful, and obviously again detracts a little bit. Did you need to be playing internationals in 2020 to prepare you for 2021? Because we saw the schedule that we should have had. Obviously, there clearly isn't going to be a men's Ashes series now, but nobody at any stage announced any women's games. Was that a mistake?
I think from being in the EPU last year, there was talks of Australia coming over with the men, and it would have been sort of a double Ashes, and it was quite heavily spoken about when we was in camp. Obviously, I weren't selected in the camp this year, but I've got quite good friends who are still in the camp who I speak to regularly, and I met one of them before the lockdown, and she said it's definitely not going to happen. There'll be no international game against Australia. And I think if we want to be the best at the World Cup and we want to compete against Australia and New Zealand, we've got to be playing them in friendlies. It's no disrespect to France. Last time we went to France in 2018, I think it was about 52 points to 0 or 4. I can't really remember, and it weren't much of a battle really. So no disrespect to them, and obviously I don't know how they've progressed over time, but we need to be playing them top teams if we want to fight for that first. We want to be a World Cup winner, you've got to beat the best, and I think we don't really have anyone around near us who we can, like New Zealand just can take a little trip to Australia, but for us, who we need to be playing in at this season? I don't really think any international will be happening. I think I've seen something about Wales. I didn't even know they had a women's squad, if I'm totally honest, but I think there was a discussion with the women playing Wales. But again, is that going to be competitive enough, or are they better just playing Lancashire, Yorkshire?
Yeah, it's a tough one, that, isn't it? Like, I think now the closest would it be Canada that would actually, because Canada did all right in the World Cup. And they've got a lot of rugby union internationals, so they're used to that level. But I think Canada, a 6-7 hour trip would be the closest possible kind of fixture. But the women have always been a bit of a backseat when it comes internationally. I remember, I think it was 2016, I think we went out and we flew out with the men as a double header with the men, but we only ever found out about it really a few months beforehand, and it wasn't ever shouted about. And then there was talk straight after that about doing the double header with the World Cup, and that came out quite late, because then we were going to do a whole festival in the summer, but we didn't end up luckily going out for the main World Cup. But in terms of, I think people are too scared with the women to suggest something, either A, financially, or B, if it's all kind of like hot air really. But it's never been, not very well organised, is that the right word to say? But nobody's ever really just put the stamp on it and been very dominant about what the women are doing. So unfortunate, because they really need to. I think in 2017, if we'd have had a few more competitive matches, like Faye said, France have never been that competitive. But the whole scenario about being in camp and wearing an England shirt and being in that kind of environment is great. But 2013 the girls nearly pipped it. 2017 I think we're a bit of a fitter squad, but Australia had already gone pro by then. Maybe Australia not playing is gonna help England catch up. Who knows? Who knows? But I definitely don't think we'll get any more internationals now prior to the World Cup happening. That's for sure.
Which is a shame, because obviously the World Cup next year is a massive opportunity, and it's coming in a year now where every other sporting event in the world is happening, with the Olympics and the European Football Championships. But we're right at the end of the year, running alongside the men's tournament, prize money to whatever else they've been saying, but a big opportunity for the sport. And England with an interesting draw against Brazil in the group stage, but that's tough path to the final, potentially against Australia and New Zealand, and some big venues to fill as well. It's going to be a great opportunity for the sport, with plenty of eyes on it next year.
Yeah, but what are the BBC going to do? Like, you know, they've said that they're going to show the games in the World Cup, brilliant. But now, with the backlog of all this sport and everything that's happening, you know, the Olympics and then the Euros, there's so many other bigger sports, unfortunately, that are going to be shown around the same time. You know, and where does, you know, we might still be on the BBC, but are we going to be on a red button now?
Well, probably. I think it would have been on the red button anyway.
Well, I've heard that, you know, we were meant to be on the BBC and potentially the wheelchair was red button, and that's really sad, because we had a real opportunity there to expose the sport, you know, for how great, you know, we all love it, and you know, we don't need to preach to anybody, but that was an opportunity for a national TV channel to promote the sport, and it's highly unlikely that will happen now.
Do you think there's a case for saying that the EPU squad next year should perhaps go and do a tour if the finances are there? Difficult, I know, because none of you are full-time, but if you could take maybe 2 or 3 weeks off and go to the Southern Hemisphere and take in a game against New Zealand, Australia, PNG, because there's unfinished business there. And the domestic season then, as you say, is reshaped around those players who aren't part of the EPU. Do we need to make a decision like that? Because we've got this £16 million. We don't know what we're going to spend it on. We know it's got to be paid back at some stage. You would hope that a tiny bit of that would be allocated to the women's game, and maybe the profits made out of the World Cup would pay that back, which obviously, if you've got sponsorship, there might not even be cost attached to it anyway. But do we need to start thinking about that? Do we almost need to say 2020 is a bit of a bonus, whatever we get out of it, if we can get on the field? But 2021, the most important thing that this sport can have at every level is a successful World Cup. And to enable the women to compete and possibly even win it, they need to have maybe this little tour factored in, if it can be arranged with enough advance notice for all of you players to make the arrangements in your personal life. Do we have to start thinking like that now, do you think?
Yeah, without a doubt. Do you know what? It's not even about competition. It's about the environment. And I'm sure Faye can agree with me on this, because obviously you went to PNG and that was probably intense as well. But being in an international environment, so being in an England camp, whether it be a week, whether it be 2 weeks, whether it be a whole World Cup, it is so intense. Expectations, you get kind of all of your personal opinions and thoughts taken off you, and you're scheduled. So every night at the World Cup, we would get a new schedule: 8 a.m, be here, do this testing, wear this, bring this. The only thing you ever had to think about was your training. And I think because the EPU is so young, you know, the likes of Kira Bennett, for example, or Ellie Frayne that I play along with, I know that they need to be in that environment in order to get used to it, in order to then have the best kind of preparation for themselves personally to play. And that is the biggest thing about playing an international game that people seem to forget about. We're used to having very much free reign, not so much now because of the Super League and the professionalism that's come on board with that, but certainly being in camp there's no other kind of a feeling, and the preparation for that, people will struggle with it, you know, mentally as well. It's tough.
So do you reckon that's a potential idea, Faye, or not? Is it fanciful?
I think no. Going forward, I think if you give the girls notice in, I don't know, October, and said, listen, I know it's short notice, but in February we need to be going out for 2 weeks. Can you speak to your work? I've been very lucky in my job that they've been outstanding with me, and they've always given me time off, and they've paid me too while I was off, which some girls didn't get paid, but I was lucky enough to be paid by my job. But yeah, I do think they need to go and do that overseas. I think they need to be competing with the best. Obviously, PNG, Australia and New Zealand, but I think all them governing bodies need to work together and see if they can get all the teams in one place at once, save the amount of flights. But heading over to Australia, it's tough with the flying, and some girls can't do it. Some girls don't like to fly, and I bet you they were thinking, oh, thank the Lord that we're playing in England and people are coming to us. But now obviously there's a spanner being thrown in there, and we don't know what's happening. But in terms of progression leading up to 2021 World Cup, I'd like to see them girls going over to Australia or to New Zealand for 2-3 weeks to get that intense training and playing against the best. And I do hope it happens for their sake leading up to the World Cup, because we didn't get that in 2017. Chris Chapman done everything he possibly could for us, and we didn't get half the training what the EPU gets now. We didn't get the half even the media what the EPU got in PNG and at the nines. And Chris done absolutely everything with what he had. I remember standing outside Wigan St Pat's waiting for them to open up for us when we'd all been stood there for 30-40 minutes ready for training, and we were training at Wigan St Pat's as an England squad heading out to a 2017 World Cup, and Chris just done the best with what he had. And I do think if he had what the EPU has now, the development of players would be huge. But obviously he didn't. So I think with what the EPU are offering now and the support and the financial backing, I hope they do take a chunk of that money and head the girls over to Australia for a bit of a test, even if it means the Super League season suffers and we don't start till the back end of April. Give them girls that opportunity to go and get a test in before the World Cup.
Me and Phil got up early and watched that test in Papua New Guinea last autumn. I went to sleep after that. I didn't bother watching the men because they were rubbish, as we know on that. So what was that experience like for going out to PNG and the nines as well?
The nines was crazy. Like, it's probably one of the best experiences I've had apart from the 2017 World Cup. It was just unreal. Like, the turnaround between obviously flying and playing was insane, but it was weird. Like, we walked around and it was like everyone knew who you was. You could go around the stadium, people were stopping for photos. Just playing nines was insane, and how quick it was. I don't think we truly expected that. But then obviously the quick turnaround to PNG and the communities in Papua New Guinea, they just literally love rugby league. Everything is rugby league. I gave a kid some of my socks after a game, and it was like just a swarm of bees after these socks, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're like so sweaty, they're stinking, but everyone just loves rugby league out there. I've never played in front of a crowd that big. In Goroka was phenomenal. That was my best experience in PNG, and we literally lived in the jungle. There was just like these huts, and that was our hotel, and everything else was jungle. It was insane. Driving around the streets, people running towards the minibus, and it was a phenomenal experience, one I'm very grateful for. And then obviously I weren't selected in the second game in Papua New Guinea, but again, how we was treated over there and the ground we played in the second time, it was real big honour to go over to Papua New Guinea and be able to have experienced that.
Do you miss it, Danika? Because I know you pretty much told us now I still refer to you as an England international, because until you retire or until they say you never played anymore and tell everyone publicly, you're still an England international. Do you miss it, or do you think you'll ever come back?
If I got the opportunity and I was invited back in, I'd go back hands down. You know, there's no greater honour than playing at the top of your sport, playing at the top of your game. And I was very lucky that Chris Chapman came to watch me play rugby union, and he was the one that converted me to play rugby league. And I'll be forever grateful for that, because it's always, I think any sports person, they want to play at the highest level. And I've played in the World Cup for my country, and even playing in France in little tests was just great. And I miss it. I miss the pressure of having to be the best, because essentially you have to continually be at the top of your game, and whether it be against your friends. So, you know, Andrea Dobson, Emma Slow, Shani Crowell, you know, they're all my mates, but at the end of the day, you have to somehow be better than them in order to get selected for the game or selected for a shirt. And I miss that kind of drive. I think that's what, you know, that constant, what am I doing that somebody else isn't? And I'd give my left arm to play again for England. I don't really do much with it when I play anyway, as Faye can confirm. But yeah, I'd be lying if I said no, I'm over it and I'm old enough now, because I don't think I ever will be. You know, I could be 50, 60 and somebody'd say, do you want to play for England again? And I'd say, yeah, but the fact of the matter is, and it's quite openly known in the girls' game now, is that he prefers a younger squad, and he wants rid of what was the 2017 old girls, and he wants to develop this new younger model of team, which I think is a great idea in principle, but he needed longer to do that. I don't think the 3 years he's had is going to give him any. You know, there's some great players coming through, but picking up a 16, 17-year-old now in the Super League to play in an England shirt for a World Cup is very risky. You know, you look at Georgia Roach, who I think is a great player. I think she's probably one of the most skilled youngsters we've got in the game, but under pressure, I don't think she's that great. And that's not because she doesn't do it, but how have you prepared a 17, 16, 18-year-old, whatever she is now, for the pressures of playing internationally? And especially at half, when, you know, I've always said I'd hate to be a halfback because I'd hate to make those decisions. And ultimately, when you're setting up for the next play, you know, I've played outside of Faye a few times, and I rely on coming next from them. And I don't think you can put that on a youngster unless they are just some kind of crazy phenomenon, which Georgia Roach is close to being. But maybe I'm just arguing the toss that he should have some olders in there. But you know, build and develop the younger squad. I totally agree, and I think the Knights is a great idea. But you've got to make sure that mentally they're stable enough to handle the pressure, because I think it was 2015 or 2016, and we drew with France. Amy scored to draw. And I remember the disappointment feeling I felt of letting my country down. You know, that's insane, because at that point nobody really cared about England Women's Rugby League. But I remember being in the dugout and nearly crying, and Chris Chapman was like, get your head together, you know, sort yourself out. And we weren't allowed to show that disappointment. We had to be like, congratulations, France, or whatever it was for the draw. But that was difficult. And that was like as a 29, 30-year-old. And that was really difficult to take. And that was a draw. And there was this really funny moment in the 2017 World Cup when we lost to the Cook Islands, and we shouldn't have done. We had this circle of truth. Do you remember that, Faye?
Yeah.
This awful circle of truth. And it basically was everything out in the open. You know, who's letting the team down? Why are you not working hard? Who's doing well for the team? And it was vicious. It was brilliant. It kind of, after it was done, it was brilliant, and it kind of got everything out in the open, and things were said that needed to be said that people were probably hiding. But I don't think a 16, 17-year-old could handle that. You know, there's quite a few girls that struggled and took some time to get over that.
And we were allowed the McDonald's afterwards, weren't we?
Yeah.
That's the only thing I really missed normal food to me when I was over there. But like when the EPU was announced this year, I'll be openly honest, I didn't know half of the younger girls who was in it. I was a bit like, who are they? Who do they play for? Kind of thing. Maybe it's me. Maybe I don't get it. I think I have my rugby life and I have my life, and I turn up to training and I play, and I'm not a very sociable person within rugby. I think I've got quite good few friends, but I've gone from where rugby was my life to actually rugby's my hobby now, and I do it because I enjoy it. And the minute I stop enjoying it is the minute I walk away. Hence why with the England stuff, I'm not in it this year. I won't be for the foreseeable. But in terms of the younger girls coming through, leading up to a World Cup year, some of them know it's a big step up. But like with Georgia, hand on my heart, she's the best halfback I've played with leading in an EPU. I think we just worked. I done the organising, she played off the back of it. And I think as long as you've got a halfback combination like that, that's fine. And same with any combination. If you've got a more experienced prop forward and a younger prop forward, and they take the lead being the older prop forward, then I think it works quite well. I played with Kirsty in the 2017 World Cup, and she was more of the organiser. She had a lot more experience. We played a lot more down her edge. In France, when we got that big win in 2018, I think it was, I pretty much shifted everyone around and organised, and Georgia played off that, and it was really successful. Unfortunately, we didn't have the opportunity to play in PNG together. I think we got about 5-6 minutes in the first game, but so I obviously wasn't someone he was looking for, and that's fine. But an honest conversation is all I asked for, which I didn't get. yet. But leading up to the World Cup, I do hope there's a lot of experienced girls in there. I know quite a few experienced girls around my age, 28, 29. So hopefully they'll be able to lead the younger girls through the squad. But the likes of Kelsey, when we played in Goroka, she was outstanding. I wish you could have seen that video, but again, she wasn't picked in the second test, which she was really upset. Well, so was I. It hurts not being picked. You know, when you're busting a gut out and you've played as hard as you can, it's the worst feeling in the world, being told you're not getting picked, whether that was 2017 or now. But some of them young girls, I hope they grow. I hope they grow a lot at club before they hit an international stage, because you don't want it to damage them. Like, I'm 28 and the last 6 months have really impacted me, like, quite heavily really, with my mental health, and I've struggled a lot, and I've got good friends around the game who've kept me going. But yeah, I wouldn't want that to happen to someone who's 16, 17, because that's when your dropout rate starts.
Can you foresee a day where the women's game will be semi-professional, at least moving up to professional? It might be the generation that you're encouraging rather than yours, but can it happen? Should it happen? Will it happen?
I hope it does happen.
Yeah.
I hope it does. Maybe semi-professional, yeah. Where maybe you're getting paid to play, or just games, or you're getting a finance. I really hope that happens, but I hope it doesn't happen where, I don't know, maybe Saints are offering, say, £200 a game and Leeds are only offering £150, so Leeds players are travelling to Saints. I hope that doesn't happen, because it'll kill the game off. There's not enough female players for that to happen. I know there was talk a few years ago about, so clubs should only have 4 England internationals, for example. Well, if that happened at Saints, some of us would have to be travelling to, like, Bradford to play, because there was no other clubs nearby. So I do hope it happens for the younger generation. I roomed with Georgia in PNG, and we were laughing, and I was like, I hope you sign the first contract. And I do. I'm not where I think, oh, I wish it was me. I don't anymore. I'm past that. I'm old now in the game, I guess. But I do hope someone in the younger generation does sign that contract. Can I see it? No, not yet. I don't think I can. Will it be a few years? I hope so, but I can't see it in the next 12 months.
What about coaching?
I think had this not happened...
Sorry, go on.
I think had this not happened, I think it probably would have come, you know, I think the 2021 World Cup would have been a fantastic platform for the game, and to be exposed on the BBC would have been phenomenal, and therefore more deals would have come. You know, we need to get the sponsorship, the endorsements, the backing from big companies, and having Betfred and you know, off has been great. So it's more exposure like that. And had this not happened, had we not been in lockdown, yeah, maybe after the 2021 World Cup, we would have started to see different kind of payments, and maybe not a semi-pro contract for a team, but maybe some kind of contract from a sponsor, or, you know, something like that, or being an ambassador for a company where you might not get paid money, but you might get paid in boots or kit, because even small little gestures like that make a massive difference to the game. You know, we all want a decent pair of boots. You know, Faye's been wearing the same scratchy old boots since I can ever remember. No holes in them when we play.
Not new ones now.
But, you know, buying a decent pair of boots that might cost you between 100 and 150 quid, it's not a necessity, but it sure makes you feel better and therefore play better. You know, stuff like that. But I don't see it happening now. We need to rebuild the game, rebuild the sport, and we're probably putting that back on the back burner for another 4 or 5 years at least.
I've seen at least one
about coaching on the basis of the fact that the only real story that's broken in the women's game over the last few days is obviously your good friends at Bradford have stepped down from their coaching role. A, did that come as a surprise? And B, is that your next route into determining the future of the sport, either or both of you? Not the Bradford gig, just coaching.
Yeah, the Bradford thing, I'd got wind of it a while ago. And there's, you know, it's really sad, because Kirsty and Beth are just a great partnership. They're great players. You know, in the World Cup, Beth Sutcliffe has got to be one of the most resilient, crazy players. You know, that girl could have broken her arm in 4 places and carried on playing, and nobody would have known about it. She's probably one of my idols, I think, in the game, because she is she doesn't look particularly big or or strong, but it's just great. And to be able to pass their knowledge on, you know, her and Kirsty would have had a very high, you know, kind of aspirations in terms of where they want the team to go, what they expect of the team, what they expect of the girls, you know, and then all of that. And to lose that is really sad. And just to lose women coaching in the game is sad. It's great that we've got Lois now, but yeah, they were both very knowledgeable and great players. And for me, I don't see coaching as my next route, not at all. I don't think I'm patient enough, nor do I know enough about the game. But Faye's probably more of a coach than I'll ever be.
I didn't know anything about obviously the Kirsty, but I think it's just me. I think I'm not sociable enough to know these things. And then I was working and someone had sent it me off Twitter and said, "Have you seen this?" And I've got a lot of respect for both players, and as coaches, Kirsty means a lot to me. Someone I massively looked up to, and especially during 2017 World Cup, she was literally my rock. And first thing I done was pick up my phone and give her a text, and I was like, "Hope everything's well, mate." And I care a lot about her, and I think it's a massive loss for the game. I like to see a female coach purely because I think as a player, when you're looking up to someone and it's like, oh wow, she went and played in this many World Cups and now she's coaching and she's doing it, and I think that's massive for young girls to see, those playing at 13, 14. Wow, look at this international player who's now a coach. And I think coaching is something I enjoy. I obviously do a lot with the Learning Disability Super League. That's something what I absolutely love. And before this was happening, I had set up a coaching company to work with individuals with learning disabilities, and I was going to run it through the summer, like a bit of a summer camp, but obviously COVID put a big hammer on top of that one, didn't it? But yeah, so I think coaching is something I've spoke about. I ironically spoke to Chris Chapman last week, and we had a bit of a chat about playing and when to call it the end, really, and what to look at afterwards. And he said he'll happily mentor me through looking at my level 3 and if I needed anything to give him a call. So yeah, I think coaching something I'd like to look at, whether it's coaching a younger group or going to a different Super League club, I don't know yet, but I'm just going to stick around the Learning Disability Super League for now and then see where life takes me in the next 12 to 18 months.
It must have been pleasing to see how that's developed as well in the last 12, 18 months or so, the fact that it's come from absolutely nowhere to be this brand new element of the sport.
Oh yeah, it's phenomenal, and I'm really honoured that I got asked to be a part of it. I'm one of the ambassadors, and we've got a meeting this afternoon about going forward. It's quite hard at the minute because a lot of the lads and girls playing have autism, and they need that structure. And I was saying to my mum the other day, my cousin's autistic, he plays at Saints, and I said, imagine living in a house where you're having to explain to someone who doesn't really understand that, no, they're not going to rugby tonight, no, they're not going to school, like, it's really, no, they can't go to McDonald's. McDonald's is probably, well, it's my cousin loves McDonald's, and he's like, Boris has told me I'm not allowed to go to McDonald's. And then he asked, could he go to Blackpool? He was like, Boris has stopped me again, I can't go to Blackpool. And he doesn't really understand. And I think we just want to resume back to normal soon, but the Learning Disability Super League has been awesome. There's so many plans for Magic Weekend and leading towards the back end of the year, and I am gutted about it, but seeing the growth and the numbers what we've got has been phenomenal.
I know we are running low on time, so I'll get a few quick things in. Danika, TikTok, what's it all about?
Right, you can't ask me when you're as bad.
I've hardly been on it recently.
To be fair, more recently I've got
bored of it.
Not been on as much. Pardon?
I got bored of it.
But it's just, do you know what? I've gone back to my dancing days. Dance around like an idiot. You know, I was a performing arts child before I found rugby. So what else do you have to do in lockdown apart from make a fool out of yourself and put it out there for the whole wide world to see? You know, between me, Alex Sutcliffe, Sophie Robinson, you know, there's a couple of girls from the Leeds Runners Academy that are just fantastic at it. I'm not that good. I'm not that skilled at it, but it's just get involved. TikTok is brilliant. It's entertaining.
Celebrity endorsement there from Danika. And I should say, you're asking for boots and stuff. I've seen at least one England male international, asking for free boots on Twitter before. So, you know, you might be waiting a long time, I'm afraid. Mind you, ease a bit.
Exactly, yeah. And also, I just want to let you all know that Faye's talking about her cousin being person that's upset about McDonald's, won't you, Faye? How are you surviving?
Yeah. Well, actually, I've tried some new foods and stuff like that. I miss takeouts. I'm actually quite shocked, but I've not lost any weight, so I don't really understand what's going on. But I've turned to like baking and stuff. I'm enjoying baking a few cakes and drop them off at like my auntie's and stuff like that. But oh gosh, I am literally hungry 24/7. Like I cannot wait just to have a cheeseburger. You don't like I think about it quite a lot actually, but yeah, I'm trying to adapt my palate to nicer foods, but it's not happening.
Never. Just to put into context, every time I've been on tour with Faye, and I think the first time was England students who went to France, and I think I think you brought your own food with you, and then just ate chips or bread, didn't you, for the whole week?
It's horrendous, actually. Imagine being in Papua New Guinea. Oh my goodness!
She doesn't eat anything that's not beige.
I literally opened my suitcase and I was like, right, Georgia, we've got this many cereal bars. It's got to last us for 3 weeks. By the end of like day one, we had like people were like, can I come and have a cereal bar off you? I was like, I'm really sorry, we don't have enough. Like, but yeah, it's hard. I guess I'm just not very good with food. I think more so I've never really understood it when people talk about you need this much protein. No, just tell me I need to eat like scrambled egg on toast. Put it simple. Give me a meal plan where I'm eating spag bol 3 times a week because I'm all right with that. But I've never really understood like the whole calories or anything. Probably because I spent most of my GCSE PE days stood outside the classroom door. But maybe if I understood it, I'd eat better. But yeah, I can't wait for McDonald's.
The great Ian Rush, when he signed for Juventus in the 80s, went over with a suitcase full of Heinz baked beans, apparently. So you're in good company there, at least. Although I'm not sure his time in Juventus is the best part of his career. Danika, you moved from Bradford to Leeds. Big controversial move. Everyone moved from Bradford to Leeds. St Helens, big rivals Wigan. You signed Gemma Walsh. How's she fitting in?
Oh, Gemma's hilarious. Like, obviously we knew she wanted to play with Emily, but I think there was a bit of talk about her. She might have gone to Warrington, and obviously she'd come to us, and she'd played with quite a lot of us at Thatto Heath for a season, so it was just like she was back. It was normal. Yeah, she fitted in quite well. And then she's just part of the team. It's not like it was like, oh my god, it's Gemma kind of thing. It wasn't. It was just like, hi mate, how are you? And she's been great for me rehab wise. Like she's messaged and told me to like keep working hard. And I think it's come to a bit of a shock with her with the amount of running we were doing. We were in the rehab club, me and Gemma, with our hamstrings, so we didn't do as much running. But it's actually nice to have someone like that at the club. Yeah, I'm just hoping that the referees don't hate us too much this season. I think they've got something against me, but yeah, no, it's great to have someone with so much experience playing for Saints. But yeah, I think it was a big move for her because her family is very much all about Wigan, and her dad played at Wigan. And I remember we went to shirt presentation just before lockdown, and a cousin was there, and he said, "You know what, Faye? I hate Saints, me." You know, I was just like, he was like, "But I'm here for Gemma," and I thought it must be really hard because they are so Wigan, and probably converting her to be a Saints fan would be hard. But yeah, it's good to have someone with so much experience at the club.
Bill, have you got any last things you want to ask?
I'm concerned, like our 2 celebrity guests here, that the women's game doesn't get forgotten. That there's a lot of speculation in various media outlets about how you restart the game. Some of it's taken out of our hands. It'll be either government policy or determined by infection rates. But the one thing we're not hearing enough about are the variants of the sport. And I think we've said in the magazine and on our programmes often enough that actually this is the potential saviour. That unless there's some major radical changes in the men's game, it is what it is. And those radical changes don't seem to be on the horizon. But what you can do with LDRL, PDRL and the women's game is potentially massive, because you're starting from a relatively low point. And I think there are a lot of companies, particularly out there, who would be far more interested in getting involved in a sport like rugby league if they could see that community payback. So I'm just hoping that just by talking to the girls here and trying to keep raising the profile of the women's game, that it doesn't get forgotten. And my earnest concern is that in all of this, everyone's talking about when the men come back, and not enough people are talking about when and how the women come back and how we win a World Cup.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting conversation that someone's going to have. I'd like to see what happens.
And I'm available for tasting any cakes, but that's probably nothing to do with rugby league.
Your wife will be you'll be in trouble
school
now.
Pudding.
Oh, okay. I'm actually a little bit of a professional at baking school cake. Like, people have asked to buy it off me, but I haven't got enough time between doing 5 run sessions a week and 3 rehab sessions. I haven't got enough time.
Well, here we go. What we need to do is, if we can't get a full season in, we can have this decided by various nines competitions, TikTok dancing and baking. That's how we can decide the 2020 Betfred Women's Super League season.
I'm going to win 2 out of 3 of those, so I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I wouldn't win. Don't even know what TikTok is. I don't even have TikTok.
I'll do the TikTok. We'll combine on the baking, then you can do the nines.
Do you know that's what the public want?
Divide and conquer, Faye.
Honestly, I do hope someone sits down soon and draws a plan back for the women's game, especially for the girls going into the World Cup next year. I think that should be a priority, and yeah, it's probably hard saying that when I'm not in the setup, but that is the priority: getting them girls fit, strong enough to compete with the best in the world, which will be obviously New Zealand and Australia. But in terms of a season coming back together, whether it'll be we meet again for pre-season in October, or we play quite a few friendlies in the October pre-season period and then start again in the Feb. But for the girls going to the 2021, I really hope for their sake there's either an international fixture on or we resume things as soon as we possibly can.
I mean, Phil knows me and Mark were jaded to the men's game at some point in the last few years, and the women's game has given us a bit of a boost ourselves on the outside of it. So we hope you're back at some point in the near future. Faye, thank you very much for joining us. Good luck, A, with your recovery, and B, McDonald's reopening on the side. Danika, enjoy TikTok and dogs, and try not to adopt all of them. It's too easy.
It's hard. So cute.
There's a dog just to my right, just making eyes at me and trying to get on screen. Oh, he's run off now. And Phil, the new magazine is out now.
It is. All the usual wonderful columnists, especially at least 2 who are on screen at the moment. Some hopefully thought-provoking articles, a bit of nostalgia, because obviously there isn't any live rugby league going on at the moment, but it's the usual 50 pages.
Trying to get the dog on screen, but she's not. Well, a treat. Look, there you go. No, she's not going. Can't get the staff. Phil, Danika, Faith, thank you very much. Fingers crossed we're back at some point in the near future playing rugby. But for now, until then, this has been 4020 Not Live.